Welcome to Conveyancing Matters with Lorraine and Stu. Join us for a chat about all things property.
Hello, Stu. Seems like a bit of a break. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you, Lorraine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. So you've shaved your beard and I've had a haircut. So happy days, really.
What can I say? No hair anymore. Feels lovely.
Looking, I've probably got some, to be fair. Well, one of the things we've talked about off camera quite a bit, Stu, over the recent months is I think, potentially quite a sort of thorny issue of sort of reviews and sort of posts from clients and sort of the use of social media and Trustpilot. There are others, and really kind of the views we have, because I think they can be a bit of a double-edged sword, Stu. And I think there's a really fine line between having and posting a sort of positive review, which I think we all do. We all want to use our testimonials, and why wouldn't we? We've all got them on our websites and so on. But I think there's a really fine line between posting a client review to tell other people that we've done a good job and sort of self-aggrandizement. I think it just goes, oh, good thing, oh, VV bad thing, look fine, oh, look quite terrible. So and clearly you're very forward thinking. PCS is always there or thereabouts, uses social media a lot. So I thought that's maybe what we could talk about on this Conveyancing Matters, Stu, sort of reviews, good thing, bad thing, self-aggrandizement. Can we make ourselves look a bit silly?
I think all of that, yeah, definitely. So I think it's interesting, isn't it?
Okay, so yeah. So thanks, Stu, for that.
Yeah. I think
mate, I'll see you next week.
Well, yeah. It's such an interesting one, isn't it? That so many firms don't adopt social media, and then obviously the other half do. And whether that be sort of posting reviews and content and so on and so forth. But it's so difficult at the moment, isn't it, to sort of get that judgment on, do we just want to come across as flogging our services to death in terms of, we just received this bottle of champagne, we just received those chocolates from a client. And there's always this sort of point which I hate about reviews where, clients are so sort of quick to leave a bad review and, not so quick to leave a good one. And I'd be really interested for people to sort of make comment on what they do and how they sort of monitor the reviews they get and what sort of relevance they place on reviews, because we're about to sort of do a bit of an audit, shall we say, on some of the platforms that people have left reviews on. I'll sort of be really blunt and honest and say we've completely neglected that side of it over the last sort of 12 months where we've been so busy. It's so difficult when people that don't engage in your services, that don't have a retainer with you, that are not a client of yours, are able to go and place a review on an online platform discussing publicly the services that you provide when they've never experienced them, which I find an incredible sort of situation to be in. So I think this conversation today, you've got sort of two parts of it, haven't you? You've got the sort of what we do as lawyers on social media and publicising reviews, and then what we do and how we feel about people putting reviews online about us when they might not even be our client. I always think, right, would you ever go online and put a review on there about a restaurant you've never ever had a meal at? It's really difficult, isn't it? I can't,
Yeah, I think though you and I perhaps as lawyers who have professional responsibilities, and I don't want to sound a bit pious about this, but I think we perhaps do, and I know if my friend Peter ever watches this, he will, he'll splurge his Rioja out the moment I mention it. But I do think we have to have a sort of filter. We do have to have a bit of sort of self-restraint. And I find, I'm sort of putting stuff on Twitter and I get halfway through a tweet and I think, oh no, I still got, my friend Peter actually is still thrilled that I got, apart from Donald Trump, I'm the only other person he's aware of that's been thrown off Twitter because I said something, it was completely out of context, but nonetheless, it got me thrown off Twitter for 24 hours. So a bit of a badge of honor really. But but I do think generally, you know, as lawyers, we have that sort of filter where we wouldn't put something online that openly criticises another organisation or its business, even those that we've got connection with or have whose services we've used, let alone those we haven't. But I think that's this real problem, and I think it's, you know, it's a sort of 'twas ever thus thing, because, you know, lawyers, I think we've always been fair game. And quite frankly, and I'm not quite sure why, I have to say, and this idea that, you know, people feel they can just put on anything on social media, and there's no consequence. And again, we talked about this sort of before we press record, but of course I'll be interested to know what you think, Stu, about the client of a firm recently who put a very, very negative review on Trustpilot about the firm. The firm actually noticed a sort of, you know, a demonstrable drop in work, and actually sued the client and got 25 grand in damages from the client for the lost work. But I mean, Trustpilot, I don't know whether they've taken the post down now. They were told to take the post down, and they've said, no, they did say, no, we won't, in the interest of freedom of speech. So that was quite interesting. But I also wonder, Stu, I mean, I completely understand why the firm would have done that. But I wonder, you know, overall as a PR exercise, you know, did it actually make the firm, did it do them any favors, I suppose? Did suing somebody for a really negative review actually, you know, misfire?
I think the 25 grand they won as a consequence probably came in handy, but
well, assuming they got it, of course.
Well, yeah, I think, but other than that, I don't know. I sort of sit on the fence, and that's why I'll be so interested to sort of, you know, hear our viewers' sort of rationale and thoughts behind it. But, you know, clients are very quick, or actually I use the word clients, this is the wrong term to use. It's not necessarily just our clients, but, you know, within the industry and within the chains that we deal, you know, we've had it before here where certain platforms will publish a review from somebody that's maybe 5 up in a chain about us. A coincidence, this is a massive coincidence, but only a few months back we were talking about somebody that left a review on a public platform about us, saying that we delayed an exchange because of we'd advised the client to have a boiler serviced, and we were just talking about it. One of the fee earners popped their head around the corner and said, I think that's my client. I think I know what that one might be about. And basically they said, our client, the actual real client of sales that we're acting for, said last minute, I think there's a big problem with the boiler. Don't exchange whatever you do. I'm just going to have it serviced. Okay, no problems. But then people in the chain have left that bad review about us, saying it's us that has delayed the exchange. Well, of course, it's not. It's our client. You know, we act on, you know, our clients' instructions. Our clients' instructions. You know, not the good of the whole chain, that, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's so bloody difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, funny enough, Stu, I mean, I don't want this conversation to go off on this tangent, but that does bring me right back. And we should definitely have a conversation about this, because it's something I genuinely don't understand. And maybe we should get some people on to talk about it. But it's this idea of, you know, transparency for the chain. And I still don't understand the organisations out there say, well, we will talk to you, and we will put all the information so everybody knows where everybody is at, which of course in principle is not a bad idea. I don't object to that. But you and I say privately so many times, but we're bound by a duty of confidentiality. We might, and you've said this so many times, you know, we might not be able to tell everybody else and every Tom, Dick and Harry in the chain what the issue is, because our client has specifically told us not to, and they're perfectly entitled to tell us not to, and we're you know, we should be keeping our mouths shut. So in a sense, we almost have to bend over and take it, don't we, really?
Well, this was so difficult when
somebody then chooses to slag off PCS because you're carrying out your client's instructions.
Yeah, well, what's really difficult is when, of course, people put private information on that review, that's private to that transaction, and then of course in theory we want to go back and actually put the truth on there, but of course then we're revealing information that we can't. So we're sort of you know, caught between the, what's the terminology, the
rock and a hard place, or
rock and a hard place. That's the one I was looking at. We're caught between a rock and a hard place.
You know, without any doubt. But
so I think going back to reviews and that case, I think I haven't actually checked, but I would imagine Trustpilot would have removed that review. In our experience, we find that if non-clients of ours were to leave a review, Trustpilot will remove them. Google, on the other hand, don't kind of regulate. I suppose I would describe Trustpilot a bit of a regulator of reviews.
Well,
So
maybe the clue's in the title, maybe the trust thing, that's what they have built their business model around, isn't it?
That's it. Whereas maybe say Google, that wouldn't quite be the case. Everybody can put a review on there. I've heard horror stories, literally horror stories of other firms where I've been told that, they've acted for multiple parties, maybe on new builds, and, the whole sort of estate have left bad reviews about this firm. And, it's really difficult, isn't it? You can get your competitors could leave a review. It's so difficult, isn't it? Especially where, we've had sort of a boundary dispute fairly recently. And the client we're acting for was successful in taking back a proportion of their garden. Well, of course, you can guess what I'm going to say. The other party that we didn't act for left a bad review.
And that's, I mean, and anybody actually reading that would, should conclude that therefore you had done a very good job, and this is just a very disgruntled sort of neighbour. But of course, the problem is what I sort of struggle with a bit, and I don't always achieve this by any means, I must say. So I'm not saying this from any moral high ground whatsoever, but I think it's just now a whole part of the problem is just that kind of immediacy in terms of, and I am now completely showing my age, but is that whole sort of immediacy thing. It's that, I want to vent and I want to vent now. So I'm not going to filter. I'm not going to think about what this looks like to the however many people might see it. I'm just going to sort of put it out there. And I said a minute ago, this whole issue of sort of clients sort of threatening a law firm with X or Y, or keep my bill down, otherwise I will complain about you. I mean, I can say from my very old standpoint that was always 'twas ever thus. That propensity for clients to make that threat has always been there. And anybody any young people watching this, I can assure you that is not a product of today's client base. That's always been the case. But what people were threatening to do sort of 25 years ago is, put you in the...
I tell you what's changed though on that one, Lorraine. It doesn't have to be your client that threatens you.
Well, I was going to come on to that, but the thing is, it was, well, we're threatened to put you in the newspaper. The problem, of course, now is that social media has just amplified that tendency a billion times, by, to a power of a gazillion, that is so much more.
Gazillion?
Yeah, it's a huge number. It's massive.
Sounds massive. I've never heard a quazillion.
A gazillion. It's my own number. Because I think people just make stuff up, don't they? Well, the American billion, I think, and the UK, the English billion are different, apparently. Different number of noughts. And I think, well, so people are just making numbers up, aren't they? When you get to numbers that are that big that we can't comprehend, if I confidently say gazillion, people are just going to be,
Is that more or less than a zillion?
I know it's more.
More than a zillion.
No, because William is more.
Just okay.
Just FYI.
We'll make some notes on this, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because William, lots. Because William big.
Lots and lots.
But but of course, social media has just given quite literally people who are always going to vent, given it their platform. But my theory on this people not being your client thing, having a pop, and having a forum, which of course they do now have. And also, frankly, they feel they've got that entitlement to have a pop, which is also very, very irritating sometimes. But of course, is the day, which wasn't that long ago in relative terms, but when the legal ombudsman said, yes, as the legal ombudsman who is there to sort of adjudicate complaints against law firms or to look into complaints against law firms, yes, we will allow non-clients of the firm to make a complaint to the legal ombudsman. And I kind of ranted about that at the time. I ranted about it when I was training, and you can see I haven't got over myself. I still find that quite extraordinary that somebody who has not consumed your legal services, Stu, who does not have a retainer with PCS Legal, who's got nothing to do with you as a client, who's not signed your terms and conditions, who's paid you no money, to whom you owe no duty, actually could bring a claim to the Ombudsman. And one of the only, I'm pleased to say, one of the only complaints I had that reached the Ombudsman, interestingly, was from a non-client. It was from, the lady next door. My clients were utterly delightful, very, very pleased with what I did. And I'm sure we've mentioned this, but the amount of sort of time and aggravation and hassle to deal with this complaint that got to the Ombudsman, we paid the Ombudsman the £400 fee for the pleasure of being looked into. And of course, thankfully, the Ombudsman found in our favour and sent us the £400 back, Stu. But that was, that person was not a client. And I think that attitude from on high gives a legitimacy to this idea that, like I said, let's just all bend over and take it. We're fair game.
It's a strange scenario, isn't it? We're guilty before being proven innocent, which, in the eyes of the law, shouldn't be the case. It should be the other way around. So it's a strange kind of situation we find ourselves in. That a regulatory body such as the legal ombudsman, or dealing with complaints such as the legal ombudsman, can adopt that sort of stance. I don't really get it.
I never did get it. And Stu, I have to ask, we can't be talking about sort of putting posts on social media about good things that our firms do and good feedback. And, it's lovely to see people's flowers and champagne. But let's cut to the chase, Stu. If a firm is trying to reward its staff, I'm just not sure how I feel about a firm that rewards its staff with a bag of sweets. And then the staff member excitedly posts a picture of the bag of sweets on social media, on LinkedIn. On the one hand, I do have that warm glow and think that's a really decent thing. The firm is actually, in some demonstrable way, saying thank you to all of its staff. But on the other hand, I then step back for a moment and think, but a bag of sweets? Really? Is that all? Your staff have they might have given them all 250 quid as well. Don't get me wrong. They might have done.
Might be hungry. I don't know.
But, just give them all diabetes. But it sort of just leads me to think, oh, really? I sort of struggle with it a bit because I can actually.
I think you got a couple of bits, haven't you? I think
they look quite mean.
I think the fact that on public platforms people can criticise means that you're almost forced to go back, and then if you get anything positive, you want to shout about it because people can put negatives on there. So you're sort of forced to fight a negative with a positive and hope you've got more positives, etc. So I can understand why I do that, and we to a degree have done that, and we need to cut down on that. I think a bit because it gets a bit boring, doesn't it? Now people just
I don't think there's anything wrong with firms posting positive reviews that they've got from clients and presents that they've got from clients, because apart from anything else, it's a regularly infrequent occurrence. What I struggle with, apart from firms giving their staff sweets to say thank you, is actually when perhaps an individual lawyer is saying, aren't I fab and aren't we fab? I do struggle with that, I have to say.
Yeah, so we do lots of things internally, but I have to admit, I've never thought about particularly publicising those online. I mean, we do things here, such we have like Employee of the Month, but that's not just restricted to fee earners, that's anybody in the practice, and they get a money sum if they win it for that month, and we've got a little wheel that they spin, and there's prizes on that wheel, which could range from a day off to 100 quid or whatever. So they get that on top. We do things such as, because of the sort of stresses and strains everybody's been under, we've got sort of regular dress down days, and we've introduced loads of staff benefits over the course of the last year particularly, but I've always done multitudes of whether it be working from home, days off they can buy back or sell, loads of staff benefits. But a bag of sweets is a bit of a difficult one for me. I mean,
a
lot more than that in terms of monetary terms. I don't know whether those firms may well provide bonuses and not publicise the amount of the money that's a bonus behind it, I suppose. But
Yeah, they might have opened the sweet bag and it had got 250 quid in it, and happy days if that was the case. So
I think if I give somebody a bag of sweets, I think they just throw it back at me. I think it's a bit more than that. But
you'd have a Fox's Glacier in your left eye. Because I saw the lovely Martin Ellis, who's a brilliant CV guy and recruitment consultant, and he's just fantastic because he just calls a spade a spade. I absolutely love him. And he put a post on LinkedIn a week or so ago about, what are the top 3 things you want from an employer. And he put up what he thought, was his list, which is fine. One of the things I put up, having reached, not, a reasonably high level in a law firm. And one of the things I really felt, which kind of feeds into this, and one of the things I posted back to him was, as an employee, of course, money's important. We can't get away from the fact money's important. That's ridiculous to say otherwise. But what I also really wanted from my bosses was to feel appreciated, just to, and that's a difficult thing for anybody to express, because if you say thank you too often, you're sort of seen as being a bit disingenuous. But I did actually want to feel from the people above me that they were kind of pleased that I was there and that I was making a difference. It wasn't all about money. And actually there's very, very few bosses and firms that I think can genuinely kind of express that appreciation. So if a bag of sweets is makes people feel appreciated, then I do genuinely think that's a good thing. But it's quite a difficult thing for firms to achieve, because we were talking about it before we came on air, Stu, because as you were saying about sort of just that whole reward thing, fee earners who are regularly beating their targets, as you've said, it's very easy for you to work out whether they could or should be rewarded. But to my mind, some of the absolute unsung heroes in conveyancing teams are the post-completions department. Anybody I'm connected with that's in post-completions, I immediately say to them, you're doing one of the most difficult, risky jobs, and you're protecting the firm against lots of risk. Because, if you get your completions in, your registrations in on time, you're protecting the firm hugely. But they're more difficult to see and recognize, as you said, Stu.
I think anybody that's is target driven, it's easy to recognize sort of performance on numbers, isn't it? We would regularly do things. If we got a bundle load of completions, it's very easy to recognize the accounting department because you know what they've physically been doing. New business is easy because we've got sort of targets, and if they smash those targets in terms of work intake, again, it's so visual, it's so easy to be grateful, do something for them, and that'll pay off in the end as well. And the same with fee earners, with the volumes of new matters, exchanges, completions. That's very easy to monitor. Post completion, we said this off air, didn't we? It's very difficult. They're kind of sort of in the background. I suppose they don't interact with you as much because it's not a live kind of matter whereby the client's on the phone every 5 minutes. So they are probably the unsung heroes and probably get the least thanks out of everyone, I think. But it's not just them. It's we always try and be grateful to everybody. It could be the receptionists that are taking volumes of calls that are unheard of. It could be our juniors that are opening the post, that the volumes of posts are still enormous. So every single person has a part to play, and if one falls down, it leads to another, doesn't it? So you want to be grateful to everybody, not just the big hitters, big players within the practice.
Well, as I say, because they actually wouldn't be able to do their jobs as well if it wasn't for everybody else supporting. If that post wasn't getting opened and scanned in onto the system and put in the right files and all the rest of it, they've got to be, it's other people that give them the environment to achieve.
Yeah, of course, really. Definitely.
It's never usually just, but in a sense, that's what kind of is so annoying and upsetting, I think, for staff when negative reviews are posted about firms. I mean, because I certainly thought this when you and I first started doing Conveyancing Matters, and I thought, well, I've got lots of opinions on things, but I can do this. But I thought, well, but I am putting myself out there to be criticised, and a couple of people have, and fair enough, they're entitled to their opinion. I've learned not to stoop to their level, I think, but somebody, I did a thing on LinkedIn a week or two ago, because somebody put up something quite catty about, legal trainer, I've heard it all now, and then deleted it quite quickly, but not before I'd kept a screenshot. And I thought, well, actually, you are in doing that, that person was sort of questioning my qualifications, my professional integrity, my ability to earn my living. And it's exactly analogous with a firm, with a law firm that gets a negative review. And of course, nobody thinks about the effect on the people in the firm on those negative reviews. They shoot from the hip. They might be entitled to have a go at you, Stu, because you're at the top of the tree.
Yeah.
But the 5 people below you who've made a file happen, who've worked their absolute bits off, who still get
I think one thing I would say to those sort of in the line of fire, so to speak, that are on the ground doing the work every single day, is if you get a bad review, if you get a complaint, somebody's not happy, that doesn't mean that you've done a bad job necessarily, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with what you're doing. That's just somebody's opinion. And what social media and public platforms have done is given everybody the platform, if you want to call it that, to voice that opinion like never before.
Yeah.
So everybody's become a bit of an expert. And I'm not sure if I've got deja vu and said this kind of thing before, but it's a bit like what's going on at the moment. It's so easy for us to criticise the government, maybe, or let's just say Boris. Okay, we're going to criticise Boris. Who am I to criticise Boris? I don't know. I've got no idea, have I? I haven't studied politics. He's so much in a better position to make decisions and know what's happening than I am. Yeah, I'm quite quick to criticise, maybe. And I think sometimes that's where we are, isn't it? We all criticise people. What we don't realise is that when we get criticised, we take it to heart. And I know a lot of earners do, but that doesn't, define them or the work they do, or doesn't mean they've done a bad job. It's just somebody's opinion that it might not have been a good job. But their opinion, and it could be somebody that's got zero conveyancing knowledge, isn't as strong as the opinion of your employer, who knows what you've done, that's been over your file, and it's their opinion that's, of greater importance, in my opinion. Anyway, that's what I think. That's the message I would put out there to the guys if they're getting it in the neck,
And I think also it sort of, maybe to conclude, Stu, kind of takes us back to other conversations we've had, but I don't think we can talk about this and again sort of perhaps talk about general criticism of conveyancers without sort of turning around and looking out and saying to all of the many people in other professions connected with conveyancing, just butt out and shut up. Of course, there are conveyancing firms that haven't coped as well with the volumes of work with the pandemic. There's very few that could. Of course, there are firms that haven't, embraced technology as quickly as they might have done. But then again, if you were thinking about it and you didn't have enough money to invest, then you're not in a position to do it. And for anybody looking to source an entirely new case management system to help you work better, that's probably, I would guess, a 6 to 12 month project, certainly a 6-month project to source it, look at what you're buying, test it out, book it, get the training, buy it, all of the rest of it. So, all of this conflict.
Not to mention the quazillions of money that you've got to spend.
Not to mention the amount of money that you're going to be.
It's so easy again, isn't it? We get criticised, why haven't conveyancers done this? Why haven't they done that? Well, number one, you're running a business that there'd been no pre-warning about the global issues that were going to occur. We then get given this additional work that we had no pre-warning of. We have a limited time where this is going to take place. So between March and June, are you going to be able to recruit people to come and work in your business where after June, you might have to let them go? Who's going to come and work for you for 3 months? So actually, practically, people's comments sometimes are completely sort of, uneducated in terms of knowing your business and how you can react. And dare I say that, there's not a lot firms can do between March and June apart from grin and bear it. I know it sounds horrible, but there isn't a hell of a lot you can really do.
No, again, and mate, apart from us, we keep banging on about trying to manage client expectations, trying to tell clients that no, we can't guarantee you're going to hit the stamp duty land tax deadlines. And of course, trying to manage expectation is the one thing that will hopefully feed into a more positive, or certainly not a negative review at the end of a transaction. The
problem with managing clients' expectations are that you need everybody to play ball, and the difficulty is when other firms might go against what you say in terms of timeframes. I mean, we've got a transaction at the moment where the firm on the other side is saying that, you know, we get all our matters done on average in 6 weeks and stuff like that. And you think, really? You know, and it doesn't just stem from all the lawyers, it stems from the estate agents, brokers, whoever's involved. You know, everybody needs to play ball and have the same message coming out. The same message doesn't transcend across all our communications to the client. And the problem is the client's got to pick who they believe, and they'll probably pick the one that they want to believe, i.e. the one that's saying it's going to go through quicker than it should do.
Exactly.
So managing expectations in this market's a dreadful task.
It is. Well, I would go as far as to say in some ways it's an impossible task. And of course, people hear what they want to hear. And it comes back to, again, maybe we've spent this entire Conveyancing Matters, Stu, saying things we've already said. But the thought that if we're telling people bad things because there's a dodgy title or there's a dodgy search or there's no access, that's what we're being paid to do. Actually,
yeah, I know.
People fail to understand. We are the fall guys. We're the people. If we've got bad news that about the property or the title, actually, that's us doing our job properly. And that's what people.
That's what we get paid in effect to do. And I think sometimes sight's lost, isn't it? You know, we're looking at title. We're saving people from making a financial disaster.
Yeah.
And of course, that may lead to a negative review. That's the irony, isn't it? That's the irony. And the way to finish, I suppose, the irony is that we're saving people, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds, or quazillions, as you like to say. And yet we could receive a complaint or a bad review on the back. That's what I think makes our job so difficult. And in addition to that, everybody, the experts, will criticise what we do. So it's thankless sometimes, isn't it? But reviews is such a difficult one. I'll be really interested when people comment to hear how they deal with it, if they do. I think from a marketing perspective, you'll often get told that you should be replying to every single one. But again,
that's kind of, these days that must be nearly a full-time job for people, for someone.
Exactly. But do you then start to reply to reviews where clients aren't yours, and do you put a negative comment? You're not our client, bugger off. I'm not sure where the value is.
Well, I think also the difficulty with engaging, which is why I very much, if somebody's got something negative or critical to say about me, particularly on Twitter rather than LinkedIn, but I will just stay short, sweet, factual, and but won't actually really sort of engage particularly, because it opens up a dialogue that by definition is not going to end well. So I don't actually see any point. I think acknowledging, and if dear client, if you want to talk about our service, please do get in touch, I think is fine. But I think to try and have any sort of public dialogue or engagement is a terribly bad idea for all the reasons.
One of the most difficult things I find is where people don't mention anything at all during the whole course of the process.
Yes.
Then leave a bad review. And then when you look back, everything was done within every expectation that you set at the onset. That's what's incredibly difficult, isn't it?
Are they the people that are just trying to get 200 quid off their bill?
Well, that's another story for another day, isn't it? I think where people paid to get these reviews removed, I just think morally it's such a bad standpoint. I know loads of firms that do it, and not just law firms, agents. It's common practice to pay for bad reviews to be removed. I just think you're setting such a precedent. I'm not sure it sits right with me. I think if someone's opinion's bad, it's bad. You can't please everybody, and if people want to leave a negative review about myself and what I've done, then that's their opinion. But for me, I'm not sure I'll be wanting to pay them any money to remove it.
No, I agree. Ransom. Well, that's probably as good a place as any to leave this, Stu. I slightly get the feeling we could have chatted on about this sort of indefinitely, really. So, you're getting a good review from me, mate. I think that was fun. I think that was very positive. I think you're going to get a little sort of thumbs up emoji. So I will no doubt see you again soon, lovely.
Yeah, take care, Lorraine.
Take care.
See you soon.
Bye.